So if you're working with large language models, you definitely know the feeling. You're endlessly tweaking prompts, changing parameters, swapping models, and you have no clear way to know what's actually making things better. In this explainer, we're going to talk about how to wrangle that chaos and master the science of experiment tracking. And this quote, it really gets to the heart of the matter. In the world of AI development, an untracked experiment is basically a lost experiment. I mean, it's an insight that just vanishes into thin air, impossible to reproduce, learn from, or build on. You know, this analogy just nails it. Imagine trying to build a complex piece of software without any version control. No history, no branches, no way to go back to a version that actually worked. That is exactly what you're doing with LLMs if you're not tracking your work. It's a total recipe for disaster, right? Just confusion and wasted time.
Okay, so let's really dig into the problem here. What makes developing with LLMs so uniquely challenging? I mean, compared to traditional machine learning, what's creating all this chaos?
Well, it really comes down to this explosion of new variables. Unlike older models, LLM behavior is incredibly sensitive to the exact wording of a prompt, the creativity level you set with the temperature, the thing that controls how random the output gets, and all the instructions you bake into a system message. Then you've got a whole host of parameters for things like retrieval, augmented generation, RAG. Every single one of these can totally change your output, which makes trying to get the same result twice a total nightmare if you don't have a system. Okay, but here's the good news. For every problem, there's a solution. We can move from the chaos of just trial and error to the structure of a real scientific method. This is all about bringing some order and discipline to how we build. So when we say tracking, what do we actually mean? Well, this table breaks it down perfectly. You've got to log the specific prompt version. Was it just a simple one or something more complex, like a few-shot prompt where you give the model examples? You're tracking the model itself, of course, and the hyperparameters like temperature or top P. And you have to log your evaluation metrics. How are you even scoring this thing? Getting this granular? That's the whole point. All right, so the big question is, how do we actually track all this stuff? Fortunately, there are some fantastic tools out there designed for this exact purpose. So let's take a look at your essential toolkit. And, getting started is way simpler than you might think. With a tool like MLflow, it's really just a few lines of code. You kick off a run, you log your parameters and your metrics like the prompt version or the final score, and you can even save files as artifacts. Then, one command fires up a whole user interface where you can see and compare everything side by side. And hey, MLflow is just the beginning. The ecosystem here is huge. You've got weights and biases, which is awesome for really deep dives into training and prompts. If you're building with the LangChain framework, Langsmith is made just for that. TrueLens is a real standout for evaluation. The key is to just pick the tool that makes the most sense for your project. Okay, so you do all this work. What's the payoff? What's in it for you? It's actually pretty simple. You go from chaos to control. Putting these practices in place isn't just about being tidy. It's about getting real, measurable power over your project. And this is the aha moment. This is where it all clicks. A dashboard like this gives you superpowers. You can see at a glance that version 3 with that few-shot prompt has the best score and the fewest hallucinations. But, and this is important, it's also the slowest. Suddenly, you can make a real, data-driven decision, balancing performance against speed. This is where you stop guessing and start engineering. So, how do you make sure your experiments are actually reproducible? Like for anyone on your team, or even for you 6 months from now? Well, here's your checklist. This stuff is non-negotiable. You need the exact prompt, the model version, all the parameters, and a snapshot of your software environment, maybe from Conda or Docker. With these 4 things, an experiment becomes truly repeatable. All right, let's zoom out for a second, because experiment tracking isn't just some little task you do on the side. It's a core piece of a much bigger picture, the whole end-to-end development lifecycle we call LLMOps. And you can see here how it all fits together. You create a new prompt, you run an experiment, and you immediately log the results. That logging is what makes the analysis and comparison possible. From there, you pick the winner, you deploy it, and then you keep an eye on it in the real world. It's this constant loop of getting better and better, and it's all powered by good data. And really, that brings us to the main takeaway here. This is the big transformation. With proper tracking, you're no longer just poking at a model and hoping for the best. Instead, you're using a systematic, scientific process where every single change is measured and every decision is backed by cold, hard data.
So I'll leave you with this one question to take back to your team. Take a hard look at how you're building with LLMs right now. Is it a true scientific process, or is it still, a bit of a guessing game? Adopting these tracking principles is the biggest step you can take to turn it into a real science.